Hello, this is the Silver Watchman, and welcome back to Starman. Now, this is episode number 2. Now, in the last episode, we had touched briefly on the creation of the universe. That's always a cool topic. Let's see. And I did mention Gravatons quite a few times. Now, here's what a graviton is. A graviton is at the center of every single atom in existence. It's not the neutrons, but it's at the center of every single atom. That's why when you split an atom, if you cut through the graviton, if you do it wrong, like, separating an atom, you do it wrong, you'll cut through the graviton. And that makes the atom extremely unstable. Which then leads to, really big explosion. Now, there's a reason that God designed gravitons. It works kind of like magnetism with metals. You have the North Pole, and then the North attracts the South, and it goes like boosh, So, God designed a graviton to be kind of like the thing that constantly pulls everything to it. Now, one graviton by itself isn't really all that powerful, but you have enough of them. And what a graviton will pull depends on what particles of an atom are connected to it. Like, say you have a hydrogen particle there. And then you have an oxygen particle. Well, now you have now you have the electrons, and it controls how the electrons work. I'm really going to get in. It's kind of hard to get really, really in depth without losing some people, and they just kind of space out. But God designed it for a reason. Now, the graviton pulls things to it. Now, what happens when you have a whole bunch of gravitons together, but you don't have too many particles? Is there something that could split, gravitons from their particles and make it not an atom, and it's just a huge mass of gravity? Yes. Yeah, actually, yeah, there is. It's known as a black hole. Now, that is a super concentrated condensation of gravitons. Now, what that does is that pulls particles and gravitons in from whatever's around it. It's a big black hole. So, God actually made that to kind of clean up. Because sometimes a star will get old, and then it kind of goes kablooey, and that can actually create a black hole depending on how it blows up. If it develops a instability, meaning something's off by a little bit, then it'll become incredibly more unstable, and instead of exploding, doing that expanding thing, and then it just kind of sucks itself in and just goes, and it's still spinning. Keep that in mind. Everything is spinning. Oh wait, I maybe mentioning gravitons is a little too advanced. I should have mentioned everything else first. Well, the decision's already been made, so we're going to go with it. We can continue on with other stuff, later on. So, that's how, in short, a black hole is made. Now, God uses black holes in the universe to kind of clean up, extra debris that would otherwise kind of mess up other solar systems or galaxies or different things. So it's like a giant vacuum cleaner is the best description I have for you people. That's what a graviton is. Like a black hole, I mean. A black hole is like a giant vacuum cleaner. Now the graviton pulls, everything into it. So there needs to be a counteracting force to that constant pulling. Or else you're going to get a bunch of implosions all over the place. Now, an implosion it's like an explosion, but instead of everything going out, it's exploding inwards. So, I mean, it's what happens when you get negative space, when there's nothing there. An explosion creates it's a big boom that makes things go outward. But what that does is that creates a negative space. Now that negative space wants to be filled up, so everything's are like, wait, there's space here. They'll rush at it, and then that is where the explosion itself is like the force going outward. And so that negative space there's nothing there. So that means everything wants to fill that spot, so everything gets pulled into that and condenses before shooting out. And that is a implosion in short. So yeah, kind of cool. No, not kind of cool. It's cool. So yeah, that's what a implosion is. And that's basically a giant black hole. It's just... Alright, yeah, back to the other thing. Now, to counteract this constant pulling inwards, there needs to be something that's going, like pulling it out. But there's nothing to really pull it out. That's why God designed things to constantly spin. Everything is moving in the universe. Every single thing. There is not a single thing in the universe, not a single particle that is not spinning. And then, you could be like, wait, but Silver, we as humans are not spinning. Your cells are, your particles are. And right now, your mind is. Kaboosh. Sorry. So, to counteract that, there has to be a constant spinning. Now that spinning pulls things outwards, and what is that is known as, if I remember correctly, is centripetal force is what you people call it. So centripetal force, things are constantly spinning out, going all over the place. But there's a balance. Like when I say God had balanced it super well, like this is like, it's very delicate, and if you disrupt it, it's delicate and very stable at the same time, which is Yeah, it's think about it. Something that is delicate and stable, meaning, yeah, you could knock it out, but it could also take a hit too, and not be, instantly like. That's why God designed it stable, so you don't blow up every single time you try to touch something, or you look at something, all of a sudden kablooey in your face. That's what I mean by God made it stable. He tweaked it so it's not too much pulling and not too much spinning and pushing. Now, when something is spinning, the outermost thing wants to go farther out. When you spin, everything wants to go away from the center. Now, when you're pulling in, everything wants to go into the center, and that's what a graviton does. A graviton pulls everything to the center of it, while the spinning makes for everything is counteracting that, so there's not so it doesn't become a giant black hole, which is what happens in some stars. They become unstable, meaning some particles, in a way, they don't stop spinning, but they spin slower than they need to, which then slows down other ones, because they're like, wait, because they start losing energy and they stop spinning as fast, and and then as a result, other things it loses energy, because other things are trying to give it energy so it could spin back at the normal speed. But as it continues to do that and everything loses energy around it, then all of a sudden 3, 2, 1 implosion. That's what happens in a black hole. But a black hole itself is spinning. That's why there's what is known as a light horizon around a black hole. Like, it just sucks everything in. They're just going around it instead of going into the black hole. Because it's just keep in mind, that is a lot of gravitons there. So it pulls more gravitons to it, because it doesn't have any particle to kind of be like, okay, so I pull this particle. That's what a graviton will only pull what it's, the best way for me to put it is programmed to pull, meaning whatever particles are on it, meaning that is what it will pull. I messed up. Okay then. So yeah, that's what happens with the black hole. There's a cluster of gravitons, but okay, back to right, everything has to spin. Without that spinning, then, lots of implosions all over the place. Too much spinning, and then everything becomes incredibly unstable, and then it wants to explode. And yes, there are some atoms out there and some, substances out there that are very, very explosive, meaning they're unstable. Now, what about those? Well, they, in a way, have their own level of stability, but at the same time, they want to be in a more stable state. God designed everything to kind of like balance itself out. And he like it's I wish I had a name for that tool. But he tweaked it and tweaked it and tweaked it. So it was like, okay, it's good. And that's what happened. That's what happens with that. So it's very So, oh yeah, back to when you cut a graviton in two, you split it. What'll happen is that now you have two half gravitons, and they become very like I don't know if you guys have ever seen, like, two plates kind of vibrate. No, that's not a good. All right, so back to the plates thing. There are two plates vibrating, and then they just kind of want to, depending if you put them close to each other and they're vibrating, it kind of explodes. That's what happens. Because they get unstable, they want to reconnect and stabilize, but because it's been damaged, it can't connect properly. Which is why, with the atom bomb, you just kind of, what they do is like they have this material and then they split the atoms in half and then they have them separated, because the second they combine them, that's when the explosion happens. They're like, oh, time to stabilize, because they're trying to be stable that entire time. So long as those two halves are not put together after being split in half, you're not really going to have an explosion. You shouldn't have an explosion. There are exceptions. And that's what happens. That's you're like splitting atoms. What you're doing is you're cutting through the atom, and that's not how you're supposed to. If you really want to split the atoms and then separate the particles so you can combine those particles and then use the energy from that to power stuff, and then you have to do it the right way, which is take the atoms apart particle by particle gently. Take one piece out, wait for it to stabilize, take another piece out, wait for it to stabilize, kind of like very, very high stakes Jenga. And if you mess up, then you got a big explosion. And that's that in a nutshell. And that's why that kind of and I'm really trying to put this in a way that like doesn't okay then, that doesn't completely just burn out your brain, because this is a very like, you need to be able to think in 4 dimensions kind of thing. We need to be able to think in not just length, width, and height, but also time. Oh, right, yeah. So gravity you can use gravity to affect time. That's why around a black hole, oh yeah, so the gravitons, they pull stuff together, and that's what creates gravity. Because it's always pulling everything in. If you got a big enough cluster, then they'll just pull everything in anyway. And that's also why the Earth is constantly spinning. And the sun is spinning. And the planets all are spinning. And yes, even the planets where you say that they're not spinning, they are spinning. They're just doing it very, very, very slowly. Like, just. I don't even know how to put that fraction, like say that fraction, but it's like so minuscule of how they used to be. And that is due to, sometimes like when a graviton gets on, like just when an atom stops spinning so much, and heat actually increases the rate of the spin. Yeah, so the heat is like energy. You put more energy in and it spins more. Kind of like when you put like a reptile in the sun or anywhere near heat, and then they're suddenly like, oh, I'm alive, I'm gonna run around all over the place now you can't catch me. But when they're cold and chilling out, they're a lot easier to catch because they're slower. Same thing goes with gravitons, but atoms and everything else. And God designed it like that. I keep on saying that because that needs to be driven home. Now, when you pull everything in, the way that like I said, it has to be counteracted with the spinning and the centripetal force and all this other stuff. And so long as you do it right, like it's all done right, everything is pretty stable. I mean, you look at anything, it's remarkably stable, considering the fact that the processes that are going on are very, very easy to knock around, and yet they're not. I don't have a word for it. I wish I did. So that's why some planets look like they're not spinning. Even Earth's moon looks like it's not spinning, but it is, very, very slowly. Also, our solar system is also spinning because, like I said, big enough cluster, and it just pulls everything in anyway. You have a star that's a pretty big cluster of gravitons, but at the same time, a star is also a giant contained explosion that should be going out. It actually is going outward with stars. The older a star gets, the bigger it gets. At least in most cases, with some of them just kind of get denser and denser, and that's when the centripetal force is not as strong, and it's strong with normal stars. I mean, everything is normal the way that God designed it, so it's working according to plan. But it's very it's hard to describe at times. So yeah, you're all of the stars are all contained explosions, and then we're very reliant on that. And then, my gosh, trying to stay on topic. I want to talk about the other stuff too, but there's only so much you could say at once. Okay. So yeah, our star is slowly expanding. All this stuff is happening at a rate that, even though yes, we can watch it, it just takes a very, very long time to watch properly. Because God designed some things to. I mean, time is relative. Time is pretty much just a measurement of how long it takes something to reach from point A to point B. That's all time really is. And then you're like, well, what about the day? The day's not okay. So you're on a spot in the world. Oh gosh, I'm deep. Okay, never mind. So right now you're on a particular spot in the world. So in this particular spot that you're in, it's so and so time. But if you're not careful, you lose track of time. So your spot right now, the world is spinning. So say it's 10:30, for it to be 11:30, the world has the spot that you're in, like the region needs to spin, has half the world needs to spin a certain amount for it to be that time, because that is the time of that particular spot in relation to the sun and the relation to the position of the earth spinning while it's in the solar system, which is in the relation to point A, which is start of the year, to point B, which is end of the year. And then you have start of day, which is your spot to reach back to where it was, which is 24 hours, which is why it takes so long, which brings me back to everything is moving, but some things are moving at a slower rate. That's why time on earth is different than time in hell, and time in heaven is different than time on earth. Because in hell, time moves very fast because there's a lot of pressure. A lot of pressure means a lot of Gravatons. Where you're like, wait, I can just push my hand and generate more pressure. Well, that's a... Oh, man. Okay. So yeah, you're pushing, but you are applying a force with your arm. God gave you control with your brain, which is controlled by your... The brain is basically kind of like the life support manager for your body, which is a gift from God. Oh gosh, I've deviated from the original subject. Gravatons, yes. Sorry, oh gosh, I want to tell you so much. It's just... There's so much to tell you. But yeah, if you notice that's really what time is in a nutshell. That's just how long. It's just a measurement of how long it takes from one thing to move from point A to point B. Even with this, while I'm doing a recording, there's like a recorder dial that tells me how much time I have left. So it's from point A, that hey, that's start of recording, to point B, end of recording. You know, that's how long it takes, which is roughly the length of the video that you're watching. And gravitons can affect that because they can affect how fast something is moving from point A to point B. That's why when you are around a black hole, time around you seems to slow down. No, wait. If you're outside of a black hole, like outside of around that area, like really far away, then time moves at a normal speed and the black hole looks slow. But if you're really close to it, it looks like it's like everything is moving really, really fast. But in reality, you are moving slower than everything else. Now with this, we as humans have an ability to perceive time, and we can even manipulate it to a certain degree by altering our perception of time and how much it actually moves. And God, yes. Oh. So yeah, that's why we do have time control capabilities. Now, can you go backwards in time? Yes, but you would end up causing a paradox. And if, backwards in time, meaning like, can you go to that particular point in time and space, like when everything was there? Yeah, because it's moving from point A to point B, which means you can go backwards. Just God doesn't allow it because you can cause a paradox. God himself cannot cause a paradox because he is already at the beginning and he's already at the end of everything. So he created everything, so naturally he can go anywhere he wants in time and space and not cause a paradox and do anything he wants because he's God and he created the rules for the universe. I've appeared to run out of time. Thank you for sitting through this entire video. Glory be to God. This is truly an honor. Thank you. Thank you. And blessings be upon you. And if you haven't, I seriously recommend that you go get saved. And thank you for doing that as well. This is the Silver Watchman signing out.